Hey there, welcome everybody. My name is Tina Ducharme, and I help people expand their definition of who they think they are through teaching you about the soul contract. On this channel, I have been teaming up with celebrities who crossed over to the other side in order to show you their soul contract. And then what we do is we pull some oracle cards to get more messages about things that they want to share, and we pull a final mantra. All of this is about realigning us with our mind, heart, body, and soul, and talk about those things that we can do to get us back into alignment. So today I am very excited because I'll be bringing forward a very comedic legend, George Carlin, and we're going to be discussing his soul contract and talking about a lot of wonderful things about word play and words and warring and things that are going on in the world. And he had a lot of great knowledge that he was sharing with us. If you look back at some of his body of work that he left us, you'll see a lot of great knowledgeable things that he shared with us. So I hope everybody is doing okay. There's a lot going on in the world. A lot of people are focused on the Ukraine ordeal, and that's taking up a lot of people's time. So it was a great opportunity for me to bring through George, because he was somebody who also lived through a lot of things, warring that has been going on in our country for many years. And so he has a lot of good ways that he looks at it. So the one thing I wanted to mention was I was calling this this channel the Crossover Celebrity Channel, but I'm changing that to the alignment keys to align more with my spiritual business, which is the alignment keys. And that is the name of my website. So to bring all that together, I am changing the name of this channel. And also I wanted to let you know why I was doing that. And just so that it can give me some other avenues for future videos that I may do that may not involve me channeling famous celebrities. So maybe things that are just about how we can get into alignment and things that I offer and like to talk about. So I just wanted to mention that. And so we're going to, I'd already, before I do the channelings, I open up the space and I clear the energy and I light my candles and bring in my angels and guides. I work a lot with the energy of Archangel Metatron, although I have, it's a healing team that I bring in and other things as well. So just wanted you to know that I do clear the energy and make sure that we're doing everything in the highest and best good for everyone. And so now I'm going to share my screen because we want to get right into talking about our wonderful guest that came through. And I wasn't really sure about channeling George Carlin because I know he can be a little ruthless in his some of his comedic style, and I'm kind of a little more sensitive and la 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 and floaty. And he came through a few weeks ago. And so I was starting to look more into his stuff, and it kind of opened me up to a lot of, excuse me, I'm feeling like I'm having to cough here. It, again, part of the speech thing, the communication, he was wanting to share that aspect about kind of where he was coming from. And again, we're all human and we all have our own ways of bringing our gifts forward. And so he's helping me to open up a little bit about these different ways of exploring people's lives you know, trying to take all that judgment out, because he really came here and did a lot of what he was meant to come here. And that is really what I'm supposed to show everyone. And so it can't always be just people that I really resonate with in certain ways. There's, you know, the world is made up of a lot of different personalities, and they have their own messages because they're meant to connect with people of their vibration. And so it may not always mesh with everything that I believe. And so that's helping me, like he was doing throughout his life, was opening up his mind. And so he's asking me to open that up a little more. So I appreciate him coming through. I do have some notes here I want to read about him. Now, he died in 2008. He was born a Taurus, very bull energy, right? Can definitely see that in his personality. So he was considered, besides a comedian, a social critic, which he was, and an author. So he was regarded as one of the most influential comedians of his time. And he had spent, you know, 40 years doing stand-up and some movies and things, showcasing these wonderful ideas. And if you kind of watch early Carlin, and now as he got older, there really was this evolution that took place. In 2004, he won the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. And Last Words was his autobiography. And I have not read that about him, or, you know, read his autobiography. So most of what I'm getting is just through kind of feeling his energy, going through. I like to watch YouTube videos because then I can really get what he's saying, how he's presenting himself. And so then that helps me to discern what's coming through for him, because I can really get a better feeling of that. So in his chart, and if you, so this is what a soul contract looks like. As if you're new to my channel, most people know already that I do have a short introductory video I put in the description box that you can go to if you're interested in the history behind the soul contract, how I put the charts together, a little bit of the symbolism behind it, and those types of things, so that you get a better understanding. But the basics that I always tell everybody is we have these two triangles. One signifies a physical aspect. And of course, because we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, we have the spiritual side to our chart as well. So I always say we start out basically emanating the vibrations of this chart at a physical level. And then during our life, we start to pull in the spiritual side. We start to awaken as we are learning our lessons and growing, right? So the few things I want to talk to you about that I'm going to showcase here in his chart was his father was an alcoholic as a child, and I believe his mom divorced him. I think he was only 2. We can already see a 2 in his chart, right? Which is very significant. Also this 10-1, which can experience the disempowerment from the masculine. Now that showed up in a lot of ways in his chart, but again, it's on his spiritual side. But because he has this 19-1 as well, this 1 is the disempowerment from the masculine, and that shows up for him at a very young age on the physical side. Because of not having his father around, that is very disempowering for a child. And we want to talk about that he also, some people start to play out their spiritual side, and I call them the older souls, you know, the ones that have incarnated a lot, because this actually is very tough karma that he has both on his physical and spiritual side here. And I find that the older souls can tend to work through their chart earlier, and then that helps them to progress to a higher level of consciousness throughout their life, because all of our incarnations are about us starting to learn about consciousness. And that's why the veil is put over us. We incarnate There's no judgment for that. We're all at our own level. There's no where we like to in the 3D world compare and compete. That's not how it is on the other side. Everybody's at their own, is on their own level. That doesn't make them better or worse. It's just we're all trying to get these different perspectives, and we come here to the earth plane to get those perspectives. And so then I want to talk about what George's perspectives was, and he's already like, yeah, you know, I couldn't keep my mouth shut about any perspectives that I had. And that comes from these threes and his physical goal, which is all about communication. And so that definitely we can see playing out because he was this great communicator. But the funny thing about the 19-1 is he was really meant to learn how to laugh at the world. And you know, he brought through this comedian side, the jokes about it, but it really was for him to learn how to also laugh at the world, that kind of the cosmic joke, because he was pretty intense and pretty serious. And he admits that he had those bouts of, and this is why it's in karma, it's those opportunities for growth I always talk about. It's not meant as a punishment. You chose to have these things. So for him, it would be hard for him to laugh at the world because he's kind of like idiots, you know, he's like got a lot of this judgmental energy going on for himself and for others. And so, and when I talk about too, he's got this little bit of this 20-2 in his karma, and this kind of shows up pretty early in his life. I don't always see the spiritual side showing up very early, but he used to run away from home a lot. And so this is this kind of a war to peace thing. And it can be, and the ones can also be about evading your responsibilities, evading, you know what, if your mom's trying to put rules on you, whatever, you kind of run away and evade. But we're going to talk a little bit about this number because that played out for him pretty heavily, especially with his upbringing, the religious. He was Catholic, and I had just read a really great quote where he talked about religion, and he kind of broke down the fallacies behind this Catholic. Not everything, trust me, I have no judgment about that. I was raised Catholic myself, and there are many good things about any type of a community, spiritual gathering and things like that. But seeing through the BS part of it, this fear-based, you know, there's somebody judging us in the sky and we have to follow these rules. And he did a really great job of breaking kind of all that down so that we could, again, start to question that. And that was what giving him that strict religious upbringing was all part of his path that he chose here. Because in order to reach out for other beliefs, you have to kind of be inundated with this kind of strict religious upbringing. And because that's what makes you want to look outside of yourself, because you are getting a sense that you don't really agree with it. I never bought into it as a child. I was very psychic. I have a very psychic number in my chart, and it's in my karma, so I would question it a lot. But even as a young age, I recognized Jesus, but not in the way that they were about worshiping him. And he always felt like he was my brother. And so again, that was kind of me being a little more psychic and in tune with what the message of Jesus in what I believe was versus what, you know, this we're worshiping somebody, he's higher up and he's above us. And that is not what he was saying, is that we were all these spiritual beings and about love and trust and all of these wonderful alignment keys he was trying to teach us. So let's get on with George. And so this 19-1, like we talked about, so he was, it's can be a very clown-like energy. And so he was to come into this clown-like energy, learn to laugh at himself. And it's about bringing down spiritual energies in a way that people can absorb and learn from it. And spiritual energy is, I try to let people know not to get that confused with those religious beliefs, because spiritual energies are about truth and what's right and the good of the all, not the good of the one. And so it's being centered in self and not self-centered. So it's can start out though, because of this one, which is tied to the divine mind and is very masculine. It's tied directly to Archangel Michael. And it, in its karmic form, can be, instead of the divine masculine energy, it can be a very toxic masculine energy. And we know that, he joined the Air Force, believe it or not, when he, after he got out of school. And so that was very in contradiction to this chart, except for the fact that, see, he has this in karma. So instead of being this unity and attuned to the whole type of energy and bringing down the spiritual energy, and so people could absorb it, he initially went down that kind of the toxic, because that's our culture, we're raised that way. So and part of that is his physical goals here, which is this very expansive number, and it gives him this great ability to grow and evolve throughout his life, which he did. And it's all about him. Knowledge was really key, and he would have this great thirst for knowledge. And so when he did his stand-up routines, he had a lot of facts in his, if you listen to him, he'll bring up many facts about our history and a lot of knowledge. It's all truth. I mean, it resonates so deeply because he speaks the truth, but this is all part of that. But the three now, and kind of all of the numbers I talk about have these positive and negative connotations to them, and they draw in these, they're not all positive experiences. You're trying to transmute them to their positive side. So with the threes can be very much about Mars energy is action, violence. It can be, not acknowledging. It's a self-worth number. And so that's part of this warring. And so this number 2 is tied into warring as well. We'll get into that. So the other things I want to talk about is, so we talked about this 3, right? So he was court-martialed 3 times in the Army or the Air Force, and he was labeled as unproductive because he wasn't resonating. This was not in his chart. It was for him to overcome this egoic toxicity, which I'll get into a little bit more here about the warring type of a thing, because he called warring the ultimate competition. It's the ultimate, right? That how we're so warring in this country because we want to be, it's what we're really good at. He had mentioned about our country is 200 years old and we have had 10 major wars. We are a warring country. War is just the ultimate competition. Bombs, bullets, and rockets are all shaped like penises. We have a manhood problem in the USA. So, okay, I hope I didn't trigger anybody by that, but we're talking about the toxic masculinity. He started off, he was in the Air Force, okay, so he was released with an honorable discharge. So he got in a lot of trouble there because he was, again, because he also has this number, which we call the war to peace number, a lot of inner conflicts. He was having all of this, not doing one thing, but something inside was telling him that wasn't right. And so a lot of inner conflict that he would have, and that's exactly what this number is meant to do. And so you can manifest a lot of warring in one way or another on the outside because you're going through all this inner conflict, and whatever we have going on inside does manifest on the outside, because like he says, our words come from our thoughts, and our thoughts come from, change into emotions, and emotions is how we manifest. So the other issue that comes through in this physical goal, which was about him expanding now, coming into this, again, clown energies, laughing, you know, bringing forth these spiritual idealism, is, you know, expanding on that. But the threes are also tied to money and self-worth, which is also another issue with warring, is all tied to your self-worth. We'll talk a little bit about that on the scale of consciousness that we'll get into. But he got into trouble with the IRS because he was ignoring paying his taxes because he was having this issue with government and kind of having this resistance. And then he ended up, it took him many years, about 20 years, he said, to pay that debt off because he had neglected it for so long. And threes can do that. They don't, they kind of ignore what's important, and they kind of have this one-sided opinion and not realizing that, you know, we still have to follow certain rules. And, you know, part of this 22, it isn't about always being that rebel lawbreaker, which this number is in its karmic form. You know, part of having a well conscious society is paying taxes. It is putting our money together to help each other, to support it. It doesn't mean the government's doing the right thing, but the idea behind it is correct. I mean, it is truth. It is how we should be viewing things. So I just wanted to bring that out. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about was he looked at it as a good thing after he was done paying, and was not complaining about it. He wants to make that very clear, that he actually saw that as a good thing, because that him having to work off that debt that he created by not paying his taxes timely, he ended up, instead of going into more movies and things, which are tied to the sevens, this actor energy, he ended up staying out on the road doing his stand-up, which actually affected more people in a spiritual capacity, which was actually, he really liked that, because he said he could have seen himself kind of getting sucked into the whole actor movie thing, which is all about taking on a different persona, which the sevens are tied to. But it's, again, not really what he came here to overcome, which was here. And he had the perfect talents for doing that. I also want to mention that the sixes are the best talents to overcome. You know, some talents aren't so strong, so some people don't, you know, and some of that is by design. You know, we have to have a combination, right, of this good or bad, because we're in this duality, right? So we always have to be weighing these two forces all the time. And so, again, he had these great, the sixes are all about all of this creative, it's called the thought energy, right? You create something from nothing, from a thought. So this generates actually very positive ways for him to use his creativity to bring this clown energy and to bring these spiritual ideas of truth, to expand that to others. And threes are all about sharing that with others, and 12s are all about harmony and the, you know, balance and the union of the whole type of energy as well. Sorry, whenever I channel people, I tend to get an itchy nose. I've mentioned that before, especially when I'm on just kind of, they're telling me that I'm, yep, that's what he wants me to share. So the other thing I want to say is that in the spiritual talents, sevens are tied to the heart. And it's one of the things he also came to do would be to learn how to open his heart here. Now, he struggled a little bit with that. This is a very tough energy, this very conflicted, hard to let go, over involvement, highs and lows. This is all about flexibility. And so it'd be very hard for him to be flexible and open up his heart. But the more he would open up his heart on stage, the more he would connect with the audience, that would bring more people to him. And that's how they, and that helps him out here in this 10-1, because a 10-1 in your goals, this is a service, what we call the service soul number, and you have to work very hard to achieve. It is an achievement number. but you have to work hard to achieve it. It's not, success doesn't happen overnight. With most people attend to ones, it takes a lot of years, a lot of failure, which really, there are no failures. I call it people fall and you get back up and you try again, and that's a win. You know, there are no failures. But so, but the 10-1 can also be, again, we talked about that finding balance and his spiritual, on the spiritual side, and him not getting too sucked into this separateness of us against them. And, you know, they, you know, he can be a little bit negative in his expression, but I still feel that he was really using this word of peace number in the one of the best aspects that you can, by helping us to understand what we're doing and how we really are. He was talking the truth. And so we want to go back to that religious upbringing here, which is in his spiritual karma. And so he was raised Catholic, but he recognized some BS behind it. So he was quoted as saying, no, there's no God, but this is what his belief was. There is no God, but there might be some sort of an organizing intelligence. And I think to understand it is way beyond our ability. This was him recognizing that the mind, which wants to understand everything and needs all this tangible proof, which there is no way to prove any of the, you know, the fact that we're spiritual beings necessarily to the analytical mind, because it's the mystery and it's the learning to trust and surrender that is important in our existence here. So I just wanted to bring that out. He also was, I wanted to bring up, he was the first host of Saturday Night Live, which is a very, very notable thing for him to have done. He also believed he did have, now the issue with the sixes, and I talk about this a lot, is they do can bring in some addiction issues, which he struggled with some addictions to drugs and things like that. But he did talk about, he believed his use of when he took acid, helped him to kind of go to a higher level of consciousness. I am not condoning drug use, putting a disclaimer out here right now. Nobody is, I don't believe in that. I call that spiritual bypassing, that we can get to higher levels of consciousness without doing any type of psychedelics or, but he was also, again, you know, how we poo-pooed any type of drugs that might open the mind or things, and we have laws against them. And again, that's a part of that control and not allowing us to experiment. And so he did say about drugs that they're very self-limiting. So he does want me to definitely say that. The other thing that he's very known for is the 7 dirty words, because here we're talking about the last words, 7 dirty words. And he was arrested 7 times in his spiritual talents for using them inappropriately, according to FCC. And I'm from Wisconsin, and it was called the Milwaukee 7 because that was one of the first times he was arrested for using these inappropriate words. But what he was trying to get through to people is how there are other words that were conveying the same message, but the words he was saying you couldn't say, and it was all BS. It's really, it was, because people will always find a way to convey their emotions in either actions or words. And so we are going to talk about, he definitely wanted me to talk about the words from the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, which is the consciousness scale, now that he's on the other side. And so he was kind of bringing out, like I said, these words and how we use these words in a couple of different aspects. And so according to the consciousness scales, the 7 lowest emotions on the scale. So we're going to do the 7 dirty words according to David Hawkins' consciousness scale. So the lowest consciousness will say word, which is shame. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the word and the emotion, and then the process that people act out or what they feel they have to do to get rid of it, instead of being able to transmute it through alignment, which is something that I practice and I help people with in their lives. So we're going to go through these 7 words, and you can kind of see where this falls into how we end up warring, how the ego takes over and we end up warring with others, right? The ultimate competition. So the lowest on the scale of consciousness that anybody can say or feel is shame. And the emotion of shame is humiliation. And the process of humiliation is elimination, complete removal. So you can see that playing out in wars with trying to completely remove people, an ethnic group, and this is all fed off of people's shame that they aren't willing to deal with, that somebody either projected onto them for some reason of their behavior or something. So the second lowest is guilt, and the emotion is blame. And the process, when it's not transmuted properly, is destruction. So we've got humiliation and blame as the emotions that cause removal and destruction. The next is apathy. And apathy, the emotion is despair. And the process is abdication. Sorry, it's I can't say the word. It's loss of hope. It's I don't care. I don't care. It's no emotion. Despair numbs you. It's a numbing thing. So then again, this process, not, you can see where that all gets you. The next number 4 is grief. And grief is tied to the emotion regret. And the process of it is despondency. And so that's kind of almost like not a willingness not to do the right thing or not to do anything. So that's number 4. Number 5 is fear. Fear, and the emotion associated most with fear is anxiety. And the process that people use is withdrawal. And the next one we have is desire, which is number 6, which probably surprises people, but desire is tied to the emotion cravings. And the outlet of that is enslavement. And you think of how addictions enslave you. So you can see where cravings is an enslavement. And that can be money. We can talk about many ways that the outlet is enslavement in many aspects in our society. And so number 7 is anger. And when I say your shame is on the very bottom, resonates at the lowest consciousness. And now anger is at 7. Anger can be a very cathartic and actually can get people moving. And if anger is transmuted properly, it's a very, very healthy emotion to get things moving. But anger is tied to the emotion hate. And the process is aggression. And so you can see we have these 7 dirty words, dirty low-level consciousness playing out in this war. And I call it Putin's war because this is all tied to these things that this toxic masculinity, this disregard for others, all of this, all based on these emotions that he was never able to process properly, was never taught or loved enough, whatever the issue is. I'm not going to get into his issue, but it becomes a collective problem when leaders all can take an army of people and tell them what to do and go kill people, right? So that's what we are, but we're all connected in the collective consciousness. So it becomes an illness within the consciousness. So he also wanted me to discuss with you, and then I'll get back to a soul contract here, about the soft words I was talking about that our government and things put out there to kind of hide the real truth of what is going on. And we'll talk about some of these really concealing the real problems, and how he had talked about kind of to get us very much down in these lower emotions of just following the protocol. So when World War, like I said, we've been involved in many wars, right? We're a very warring nation. It's time to just admit that. And we need to start focusing on peace instead of war if we're going to change that, because what you focus on becomes bigger. Like you said, we always have these war on drugs, war on, how many things that we've had where they're warring, but that just makes the problem bigger instead of, focusing on that positive aspect. So in World War I, we called how damaging wars are to the person and the nervous system. And so when people would have problems from being in a war, in the First World War, we called it shell shock because it shocked the system. The words are appropriate. It's talking about the shelling, right? And the shock of that. But then in the Second World War, that was changed. The wording was changed to battle fatigue. So quite a softer, right, energy than shock. Fatigue is kind of tired, not kind of, like I said, the wording is starting to change. So during the Korean War, they called it operational exhaustion. Interesting. They took the battle out of it, how it came about. And so it was kind of this disconjointed wording of the effects of war. And so in the war in Vietnam is when they came up with the post-traumatic stress disorder, which just is, again, totally disconnects it from the actual warring that goes on. And again, and it just softened the whole thing about the behind it, what the trauma really does to a person. And so, but he wants to remind us that our leaders are a reflection of who we are. So we cannot complain about them. We can only do our inner work to make sure that the more of us that do our inner work and create the inner peace, the more we will see that reflected in our outer world. So let's get back to George's Soul Destiny, which was about building his structure of truth and sharing it. So he came here to take all of these numbers, build something from that, which he did. I love this that I have here, this picture of him in 75, and then as he was older here, about teaching. Don't just teach your children to read, teach them to question what they read, because that critical thinking has its purpose. Now, the thinking mind, if we're over identified with the thinking mind, is when we get in trouble and believe every thought that we think is ours, and that identification. But it is, our thinking mind is a tool, and that's what he wants to make sure that we understand. A tool for us to discern the truth, a tool. So, and it isn't, like I said, for you to take on other people's beliefs and thoughts. It's for you to be always questioning everything. So this was his beliefs, when we say that, question what they read. I don't let the government tell me what to think. Don't believe anything the government tells you, and don't take the media too seriously either. So how he recommends how do we bring us together? And he says, stop listening to the politicians and the media talk about those things that separate us. They keep the lower and the middle class fighting each other so the rich can keep their money. And that's true on both sides, because it's always these ideas, we can't have free college because we don't have any money, yet we have all this money for warring and defense contractors, which, it's all these corporations. And, I won't get too much into that. I think everyone probably has their own beliefs about that. So I won't get too much into your face about my beliefs either. Just that we want to always be questioning them and be careful of that we're not creating more separateness. And so for him, it was he struggles sometimes with being a little bit negative and a little bit ruthless. That is part of this one here, can be some ruthlessness and this inner, conflict. But he did get to the point where he started to use this number more properly in the way that he would niggle people, getting under their skin, bringing forward the truths about themselves, all of us, and the fact that, just, it's hard, you can't argue with truth when it is thrown right in your face. You can, I guess, deny it to a certain extent, but he had a way of just spouting this truth, and there just wasn't any way you could definitely argue with it. I mean, he was spot on. So, and he, like I said, this 12-3, he did his research. He knew what he was talking about. He had the facts to back up what he was saying, and it wasn't this fallacy dreamland BS stuff. It was like real numbers, So, so this again was all about him trying to step out of the box society was putting him in. So this was him, that's where that rebellious part, not letting society dictate your actions, fighting against these words he couldn't say and things like that. Using that though to fight for change and to start to let people see through the illusion. So he did an excellent job with that. And like I said, getting under their skin to kind of make them question their belief system, because, he would tap into that and that very idealistic, balance part, and then, venturing out of his getting the flexibility to venture out of his beliefs. So I thought he did a great job during this life. I know he's Cash Peters, I mentioned him, he's got a channel called Soul Crossings. I think he did George Carlin. And even though George, through his transition pictures, came in with a little bit of that egoic, he's got some real strong egoic numbers in his karma. So it wasn't like he was able to let go of a lot of that in his life. We do still have an ego. It's very hard to integrate that ego with this type of karma. So, he's recognizes that. He certainly was. I'm not saying he was perfect and we should follow. Again, he's telling you, teach them to question what they read, teach them to question everything. And I love that. So we're gonna stop sharing the screen because I want to get to pulling some oracle cards here. And so we are going to go to the Keepers of the Light. He was raised Catholic, and these are the angel cards. And so we have Isis coming through, and it's not the terrorist group. Isis was an actual angel. So, and she was all about magic manifesting. Your dreams, visions, and goals are becoming a reality. Stay focused. And he had 6s in his talents, and that was about this great ability to focus and put his plans into action. A great tool for him with that 19-1 in karma, being able to bring that, bring his creativity to help him. Oh, so this is popped out right away, George. Oh my goodness. So he wants me to read a little bit about Isis so that people understand. So I'm going to do that. Sorry, George. I didn't mean to move too fast there. Isis is a strong, smart, and focused Egyptian winged goddess. According to legend, she was able to move from darkness to light and between the underworld, heaven and earth. For that reason, whenever she comes to us, she will help us move from the hell of our own fear into the heaven of our own love. She was also able to revive her lover, Osiris, from the dead. And this powerful story shows how she can help us revive an aspect of our life or a dream that we may have killed off with fear or lack of self-belief. With her magical abilities, Isis will guide us to bring our dreams into reality. So you can call on Isis for that. And then we'll talk about his dream was really to become an actor and more into the movies. And he had a little bit of issues with that 3, the self-worth, about really being able to make that happen. Again, he manifested those money issues and ended up having to go out and onto the road, although he was very grateful that that ended up working out so well for him, with being able to really build that body of knowledge in his expression. So stillness, again, another way of getting into alignment. Stillness, the great, that word alone, just what is that? Calm, you know, you see the swan there, beautiful energy there, the swan. The tundra is a stark and severe landscape found in both the southern and northern hemispheres. It is usually bereft of most plant and animal life and can only support very low-growing plants such as mosses and lichen. The soil is frozen year-round, so it is impossible for trees to grow in that barren landscape. In the winter, the landscape is very cold and dark, and wild winds surge across the desolation. Even in the summer, the land remains frozen, although the surface can be soggy and covered with lakes, marshes, ponds, and bogs that become havens for millions of migrating birds. So it's talking about being able to take a step back from a project, situation, or relationship, even if for just a few moments, mend bridges, slow down, breathe. With the 12-3 in your chart, people they do, and they have trouble slowing down, stillness. So that's why he's bringing this up. Being able to meditate, slow down, breathe, be still, go within, listen to your inner voice, take time to connect with your spirit guides, ancestors, and spiritual guardians. Listen to your higher self. Timing is everything. This is not a good time to start a new cycle. Wait, incubate, fix things that need fixing, heal things that need healing. Think things through, forgive yourself and others. If things seem barren or even bleak, hold on. Just as the migrating birds find new life in the tundra marshes in the summer, you too will expand once again during the coming thaw of your life. Wow, that's a great message. I'm sure that's going to resonate with many people during this time. So now we have wisdom of the hidden realms. And I know he was a guy who had all these levels to him. Okay, so we have the Hawk Prince coming through. And so this is spirit communication and paying attention to what's going on around you, he says, what's being said, why it's being said. And so the Hawk Prince, that is, he was very much about the Native Americans and how they were tied to nature and how we've kind of disintegrated that with shopping malls and things to satisfy our ego, although the ego can never be satisfied, rather than honoring nature, making more nature preserves, you know, all about that commercialism, making money, capitalistic, you know, it has its place. So the number 11, new beginnings, but it adds up to a 2, and that was in his chart in that war to peace. And again, you see the hawk there, and you know, the smoke, watch the smoke and mirrors. He's saying, watch the smoke and mirrors. It's on both sides. Be very, very careful. So love that. That's so him. Okay, we're going to go to these archetype cards too, because they bring in the positive. Oh, we got one come out right away. The positive aspects and the negative aspects. So he's got the gambler comes out. And so the light attribute, so the light positive side of the gambler is willingness to follow intuition, even when others doubt you. They're taking a gamble on what they believe through their intuition, even though people around them might be poo-pooing them. The shadow side, though, of the gambler is relying on luck rather than hard work. And so thinking that there's a perfect timing when there's no perfect timing, and not following your dream or doing it, or, you know, just relying on you're going to win the lottery or playing the lottery or going to the casino every week because you're going to win and then life is going to be easy. That's not, that's the negative side of that. Let me see if they have anything else he wants me to point out here. Okay, so the gambler also is a risk taker. So he had 6s in his talents. And so 6s gave him that great ability to take risks, which he did. He got in trouble for, but it benefited him in the long run. Anytime you speak the truth, and even though you're going against the law, I'm not advocating rule breakers by any avenue, but do you see how he was challenging those boundaries? So that was another thing he wanted me to mention with the gambler, risk taker who plays the odds, including certain addicts, entrepreneurs, day traders, and those who take risks in politics and other social arenas. The gambler attempts to outrun the speed at which ordinary change happens. Positive aspects manifest in following intuition, even in the face of universal doubt. And he knew things were loosening up, things were changing. And so he was following his intuition there. So the shadow gambler has a compulsion to look for lucky breaks, even in relationships, rather than working hard to make them succeed. Look for the ability to follow your intuition in risky situations. So we're going to the animal spirit deck, which he picks the decks. So after I do the opening, we pick the decks. And we've got another 11 coming through. We got 29, which adds up to an 11, which is and it's the giraffe spirit. I love this card because it's about seeing the big picture. And he did a really good job of that. What's really going on here? Like, what was the war in Vietnam? What was that? What a bunch of nonsense. Here we were literally, like he was talking about sending our children over there to be killed, forcing them to go over there. They didn't have a choice even in it. And then for what? What was that about? Because of ego, that, like I said, it's that toxic, we're the ultimate competition. We're going to go in and basically, he said, bomb brown or yellow people or whoever that wasn't like us. And they make up some nonsensical, which we did. And, you know, the weapons of mass destruction, all of that made up nonsense, because that's all it is. It's all an excuse to war with somebody. And we have to get back to that, working on our inner self. So giraffes stretch upward to reach the treetops and look down from a high vantage point. And that's what the 2 gives you. The 2 in his chart was all about these emotional highs and lows and that flexibility, but being able to see things from different perspectives. So when the giraffe spirit appears, it's a sign to observe from a higher view. In all aspects of your life, it's time to stretch your neck out and broaden your view, open your eyes to what others need or are experiencing, and see the big picture you fit into. No matter how great your wisdom, knowledge, or experience, you don't want to overlook details and connections that will help you better understand yourself and your circumstances. So stretch yourself, look beyond what catches your attention at eye level, and know that not everything is as obvious as you might like it to be. Spirit will bestow upon you a new perspective that might make all of the difference. Beautiful card. Okay, so now we're going to the shapeshifters. See why he picked this deck. Feel his energy around this one. Ooh. So this is the delicate fairy and her ferrets. That's interesting, isn't it? You can see the 3 ferrets in there. We had that 3 in his. So he's saying, and this is 24, which adds up to 6. And change is, change is natural, good, and yes, it can hurt. What a great reminder that is. To get used, and that's part of his flexibility too, with the that 20-2, being open to change, being that 6s gave him that great risk and being able to and then we've got another 2 coming through. Yin energy. Balancing, right? Look at that scale, the pink. Toxic masculinity, balancing that. The yin and the yang, we're out of balance. And we know we have the rise of the feminine. The Aquarian energy is all about also the individual. That's part of these pre-Aquarian people like George, who was all about individualism, expressing, himself, his beliefs. And so the feminine principle of receptivity, letting someone else make the first move, gathering information and taking in cues, the art of conscious allowing, super important. This is a time of calculated receptivity as you gracefully await what is coming to you, ready to accept it when it appears. Yin does not involve frozen dreams or even resting, but rather consciously allowing things to flow to you, poised to receive the bounty that will be available to you. It implies sensitivity as you alertly study the actions of others and contemplate how they will affect you and yours. Remember, you must make space for miracles to appear. Be the shaped, not the shaper. And you'll see how quickly your dreams manifest. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you for that, George. So we're going now to the Self-Mastery Archangel Metatron deck. My guide. One of my guides. Ooh, like this. This is a 3 and a 2. 3 and 2 add up to 5, and that was 5's about change, but the tree of life. Wow, this is an awesome card. Travel on. He just loved that he was able to meet so many people and do so much traveling when he was here. And he is so grateful for that experience. It's just a wealth of experience that his soul was able to absorb during this lifetime. This mission is special, and so are you who walks its path. There may be times when you feel stuck along life's pathways, yet wherever you are, there are blessings and learnings and explorations to be done. And the 22 is also all about movement, flexibility, expansion. He had the 12-3 too, which was expansion. There is no place you are supposed to be and no missed path that you didn't take. All roads converge back at the same point. There are no wrong turns or right turns, just different approaches to the same destination. You will meet others on life's path who seem to be going faster. Do not judge them, since you do not know on what part of the path they started. There is no one in front of you or behind you. We like to compare, don't we? The truth is you are all moving along the same grid lines in different waves and movements. Metatron sits on the top of the tree of life, helping you birth and descend and welcoming you when you climb back up. Archangel Sandalphon sits at the bottom, the perfect angelic anchor and compass point from which signals are sent out to guide you. The trick is to enjoy the journey. See all of it as important, all equally valid, every experience and person you meet along the way, and all you can learn to make you the person that you are. He says, We all seem to think that, oh, once I do this, or once I accomplish that, once I make this amount of money, we're so busy trying to get to someplace else that we forget that everything, to just enjoy the journey, that this is all part of the learning process about being that presence. So look at the card. Which fear speaks to you? Is it fear's color or position on the tree that most strikes you? Feel into this. What does it say to you about this stage of your life experience? Judge none of it. You are where you are, and Metatron can see you. You are not lost or forgotten or unable to be seen. The Creator's light is shining down upon you, encouraging you to enjoy this journey of life and your time here on the planet. Look again at the card. Seek now the place on the tree you wish to travel to. What does this represent to you? What are your expectations, and what do you need to experience? Journey on. You are doing well, and all is as it should be. The tree is secure, and so is your place on it. So travel on, travel on. And my nose is itching. Good one. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to end with the final mantra from the Matt Kahn Healing Mantra deck. This is our invocation, where we speak the mantra 3 times and allow it to enter our subconscious and do its magic. Aha. Soothing impatience. This is what this one's about. How many of us can benefit from that one? Read 47, which is 11. These are all new beginnings, must be for George, from this. Just a wonderful. Well, of course, 11 was a soul destiny. Duh. Sorry, I kept. Oh no, I forgot that. These 11s are coming up. Yeah, I guess. This 11, 29, which is 11. And then he had the 11 too. So he's got the 2 here and the 2 here. And this 32, because he had the 3 and the 2. And then he had the 24, which was the 6's talents. Just not paying attention, apparently. Okay, so when impatience is soothed, each perceivable barrier becomes an opportunity to be more aligned with your soul by slowing down. In the soothing of impatience, you can no longer see moments of pause or delay as conspiring against you. Instead, you realize they are giving you time for inner reflection, where life's deepest meaning can be uncovered even in the most ordinary of circumstances. This mantra is ideal for becoming more grounded, easing frustrations, and releasing blame. So the mantra is, there is nothing to do but wait. There is nothing to do but wait. There is nothing to do but wait. So please say that 3 times. And it reminds me, today I was in a very long line at the store, and I was always buying my groceries for the week. And I had a wonderful young gal behind me, and we struck up a conversation and talked about what our plans were for the weekend and a little bit of, life. And she was really bubbly, and we just had this very fun, warm conversation between 2 strangers. And before we knew it, I was almost done being checked out, and it was just very easy and very nice and fun. And I was probably in line over 20 minutes and didn't even realize I was in line that long. So again, it's how we look at things in that impatience, being present, taking opportunities. I could have stressed out about that and was, been upset that it was taking so long and they didn't have any more cashier. There's, again, just being present. Everything is fine just as it is. So that was really wonderful. And so I really want to thank George for coming through and kind of pushing me to doing this connection with him. very grateful for that. And he's acknowledging also being able to share what he's learned on the other side. And he's saying he's softened. He's a little bit more soft now. As he, like I said, he could be a little cutting and a little ruthless in his approach, but part of that was okay too. You know, it's a big range, and you know, he said he's watching over he has a daughter. He's with his family on the other side now, and so he's supporting us and on our journey over here, especially in the warring with what's going on, which is why he really wanted to come forward and to talk about, for us to really dig, do our critical thinking about what we're being told, and I think he's was a good person to bring forward right now during this very difficult time for us, and work on our inner peace. So with that, I'm ask you to please like the video, share, subscribe, please, as the more people that I can either get liking or commenting or subscribing, the more the videos will get out to others who might be interested in hearing from certain celebrities that have crossed over. So again, I'm honored, and I thank George, and he's sending his love, and you know, he just says, stay cool, man. That's what he said. So I will see you in the next video, and I'm sending you so much love. Thank you, and bye for now.